Hi everybody, my name is Chef Joe Fusco. I'm an executive chef by trade and I currently teach culinary arts. Today I want to show you how to smoke spare ribs. And I'm going to do it on a Weber grill, which most people have. I do have a smoker, but I'm not going to show you on the smoker. I'm going to do it on the Weber grill. First thing I want to do is show you that this is a spare rib from a pork, a pig. And I'm going to trim it up real quick. There's some extra meat right here. Now that meat doesn't have to go to waste. That can actually be ground up and put into sausage. Some people buy baby back ribs, which is great. I like baby back ribs, but spare ribs are less expensive and they're just as good. You just have to know how to trim them up. You can buy them already trimmed, and that's called a St. Louis style spare rib. Or you can learn how to do it yourself, which is very simple. What I just did was take off that back flap that was attached to the stomach. Now I'm going to shape it into an actual rack of ribs. This end bone is very tough on this one. Try cutting it this way. There we go. Like I said, none of this is going to go to waste. It's going to be either shredded up in a grinder to make sausage, or sometimes I also use these pieces. I'll cut them smaller and I'll fry them up and get them browned and then put them in sauce when you're making tomato sauce. It adds flavor to the sauce. So what I have now here is a St. Louis style spare rib, and it's named that because of the shape of it. Just trimming off a little more fat. So this is the spare rib right here, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put some rub on it. Now you can make your own rub. Or you can buy a rub. This is called Everglades rub. It doesn't matter what kind you use, as long as it's spicy and slightly sweet. This little tab here is in the way. I'll just insert it out that. Now, what you use to stick the rub on is yellow mustard. This is normal. People who are competitive barbecue people who work the circuit and enter their ribs for competition, they all use mustard. The mustard flavor, actually, you won't taste it in the end. It just acts like a glue for the rub to stick to. Want to be generous with the rub. This has different spices and brown sugar in it, which makes it slightly sweet. And I just pat it down to get it into the meat. On this side, I almost forgot, we need to take off the membrane. So at this point, I'm going to stop the video and I'll start it. Okay, now I'm going to take the membrane off the back of the ribs. This is not that hard to do. I use a tablespoon and I go up to the third rib and just start working my way underneath it with the spoon. It's a little tough at first, but once you get it going, it's not too bad. Let me try it from this side, it might be easier. The reason you take off the membrane is that it allows the meat or the rub to get into the meat better, and the barbecue sauce and the smoke. So once you work your way under that membrane, you just kind of pull up and hang on tight and peel it off. And that's about all I'm going to get off. So that opens up that meat a little bit so we can add some more rub to it. Let me just wipe my hands here. Gonna add some more rub to this side. and work it in. Now this can either go in the refrigerator and soak for a couple hours, or you can go right on the grill. So that's ready for the grill. Okay, next I'm going to show you how to start the charcoal for the grill. This is called a chimney starter. It's a Weber starter. You could use any type though. And I'm filling it with charcoal. Now there's two types of charcoal. There is lump charcoal, which has irregular shape, or there is briquette charcoal, which is formed into a shape. Doesn't matter which one you use. I'm actually using a combination of the two in the chimney because sometimes the lump charcoal breaks up into smaller pieces, and so I'm trying to get more medium-sized pieces. The way you do this is you take 3 pieces of newspaper, you crumple them up, and you put them underneath. First open up the newspaper so that you have more surface area. And they go underneath. Then you're going to light the paper. And then set it in a spot where it's not going to burn anything. I'm using the top of my grill because it's not going to hurt anything. Now what will happen is that will start to create smoke, and it will start the coals burning. You don't have to use lighter fluid for this. Matter of fact, a lot of people who smoke don't use lighter fluid because it adds flavor that they don't want. So this is a nice clean way to get your charcoal going. Meantime, I'm going to show you how to set up the grill. If you come over here. This is a Weber kettle grill, very common. Most people have one. You can actually use this to grill regularly, or you can use it as a smoker. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, I want to show you, if you want to look inside here, there's vents which you control. So we want the vents to be open in this case. And then there's a smaller rack on the bottom. We're going to put a pan here to catch the drippings from the meat. This is where the charcoal is going to go in this area. It's called banking your charcoal off to one side. That's going to create indirect heat instead of direct heat. Then we're going to put this top back on, and we're going to wait for the charcoal. So at this point, I'm going to stop the video. Okay. The charcoal has been lit now for about 8 minutes. I would say anywhere between 5 and 10 minutes is a good amount of time. So it's nice and hot on the inside. I'm going to pour the charcoal. Okay, I'm going to set this down. And then we want to take our tongs and just kind of move them over a little bit. This is called banking the charcoal. You can put it off to one side. This is what causes the indirect cooking, which is a slower method which we use when we barbecue something. Take this out of the way here. So I'm just trying to get these off to one side. Again, this pan is for catching the drippings of the meat. I'm also going to take some wood. I want to show you this wood over here. This is apple wood, which I cut down myself, so I know it's apple wood. And I cut it into smaller pieces. This is hickory. Hickory and apple, I feel, are the best 2 woods for smoking pork. So I tried to use 50%, half hickory, half apple. So what I'm going to do is take 1 piece of hickory, 1 piece of apple, and put it on top of the coals. Some people wet down their wood beforehand. I don't. That'll burn nice. I wanted to show you too, don't use the bark. So when you're trimming up the wood, if you use the bark, it has a tendency to have more of an acid flavor to the meat. So you just want to cut the bark off and don't use it. Use chunks of wood with no bark on them. Then we're going to put the rack back on. And I'm going to put water. I'm going to put a container of water over the fire. Some water here. The water is going to help regulate the temperature, and it's also going to help the smoke to go across the surface of the meat. Then we're going to take the meat, put it right on the grill. Next up, put the top on. And what you're going to want to do, there's a vent on this top. You're going to want to open the vent. So the vents are open on the bottom of the grill and they're open on the top of the grill. And it matters where you put the vent. You want the heat to come this way and the smoke will go over the meat, and then it should come out above the meat. So when you set the top down, the holes should be above the meat. That way the smoke is going to be pulled across and out. And then for now, we're just going to let that go for about a half an hour before we check it. Want to make sure that the top stays on so that we don't let the smoke out. Okay, we're back. It's been 1 hour. I checked it at 30 minutes, but it was going fine, so I let it go another half hour. So it's been 1 hour. Here's what it looks like. I'll set this here. It's starting to get some nice color to it. You can see the water's gone down. What I'm going to do is move this water over a little bit. And then we have to just, that's the nice thing about these Weber grills, is they have, oops, I'm pulling the wrong part. They have this little flap here you can use. So I'm going to move these coals and pieces of wood around because they're starting to disintegrate. I have started another chimney full, but not a full chimney. If you can see how red those are. This is about a little less than half of a chimney for the refill. So I'm going to carefully pour those in. Move them around a little bit so I can make room for some chunks of wood. So this smoking is a combination of charcoal and hardwood, if you haven't figured that out by now. So any fruit wood works good, cherry, apple, pear, and like I said, hickory is also good to add a little bit stronger flavor. You can also use maple or oak. Okay, so I've freshened up the coals. I've freshened up 2 new pieces of wood to create smoke. We have to make sure the water is filled a little bit more. That water, like I said, it helps regulate the temperature. It keeps the temperature down a little bit. Otherwise, it would be too hot. When you're smoking, you typically smoke between 225 and 250 degrees Fahrenheit. And I'm going to flip this meat over for now. That pan underneath is catching all the drippings, which actually is going to keep you from having a mess with your grill when it's cleanup time. Okay, so the water's full. Gonna put the top back on, making sure the holes are above the meat. And at this time, I'm gonna close the vents a little bit, partially at the bottom, about halfway. So the vents at the bottom now are about halfway open instead of full open as they were in the beginning. And I'm gonna leave the vents open on top completely. This will be good for another hour. So we'll see you back in an hour from now. Okay, it's been 2 hours now. I'm going to show you what they look like. What you want to do to see if they're done is pick them up from one end about 1/3 of the way in and see. You see how it's starting to crack a little bit there? It's bending and it's starting to crack. That means it's done. Plus the bones are exposed. So these ribs are done. They're smoked. What I'm going to do now is convert this into a direct heat grill. Just going to spread out the coals a little bit. And I'm going to move the meat over to that side. I'm going to start with the back. And I'm going to sauce this up with barbecue sauce. This is Sweet Baby Ray's, but normally I make my own sauce from scratch. I just didn't make any today, so I had some Sweet Baby Ray's in the fridge. The thing with barbecue sauce is there's so much sugar in it that if you put it on and wait too long, it will burn. So you want to do it in the last couple minutes of cooking. Obviously, we want to be generous with the sauce, especially on the top. I didn't put as much on the bottom as I do on the top. But you do want to put it on both sides for extra flavor.